Hey everyone, this is Adrian and Yaro from the Friendly Show, but also Jess and Jeremy from the Indie Rails podcast, and
Hey.
Jason Swett from Code with Jason podcast in a special crossover episode where we're probably going to talk over each other about something common for us, conference organizing and conference going. So I recently met with Jeremy and Sofia at Balkan Ruby, and we were talking about Friendly RB, about Blue Ridge Ruby, and of course, Sin City came into the conversation about how it was kind of the last one, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. And I said that it would be cool to have one of these episodes. So let's have a round of hellos first, and then get into it because I think we're gonna have a good show. Hey guys.
Hey, great to be here. I'm glad to this is Jeremy. I'm glad to have this conversation. It's interesting because I was just talking to someone yesterday about starting a new Ruby conference, and I've also had another discussion maybe a month or two ago about another person's considering starting a Ruby conference. Love to see it, and it's nice to be able to talk about the details. And honestly, I think it'd be great if more people started conferences or created one-off events because we need those. And so I'm glad to have this discussion.
Yeah, this is Jess from Indie Rails, and happy to be a part of the conversation. I've never organized a conference, but I feel like I've been a spectator with Jeremy organizing his, and we've interviewed several people on our podcast that are well known for organizing conferences, and I think they're good for the industry and just interesting as a business as well.
I'll go next. I'm Jason Swett. You may know me as the host of the Code with Jason podcast. And I am the former organizer of a conference called Sin City Ruby. We just recently had the third and final Sin City Ruby last month. I may be doing more events in the future, just not that one.
The end of a trilogy. Hey guys, it is Yaroslav, Friendly Show, Super Rails. Excited to be here. I've never organized a conference before, but sitting with so many conference hosts, maybe by the end of this episode, I will be incentivized to actually start one.
Yeah.
We'll see if you're going to be incentivized or scared about
You're scared
it.
off, yeah. That's a good question.
Yeah, but the way you put it, Jason, the former organizer, we were kind of expecting. I mean, I was expecting like, oh, is somebody taking over Sin City? That would be something cool.
Yeah, somebody wanted to, but it didn't really work out. And they decided they didn't have the appetite for it anyway. So I think it's dead for good.
Yeah. Well, I think that, and this is a good, segue to our first question. I think our conferences somehow, and not only our conference, but because we are here, Blue Ridge Friendly and Sin City kind of were a little bit about the organizer. Like we kind of have the organizers, like, we kind of have that footprint, if I may call it. It's kind of like you couldn't see it done by anybody else ish. I don't want to say bad things, but okay, let's go into the first question. What made you do it, and what basically did it mean to you?
I'll go first on that one. I actually never intended to put on a conference. I wanted to put on a class. I thought it might be a fun and hopefully lucrative thing to do, to put on some classes. And me and my boss at the time had an agreement on how we would do it. It was kind of a dual purpose thing. It would also help with our hiring pipeline, was the idea. And my job at the time was based in Las Vegas, although I worked remotely from Michigan. And so one day I reserved some hotel space and put up tickets for sale to this class, and nobody bought tickets. And I was like, oh no, what do I do? Because the space was reserved and I had to pay for it. So to salvage the thing, I decided to try to turn it into a conference. And that was actually a lot easier to sell tickets to. And that became the first Sin City Ruby.
That's awesome.
I didn't know that story.
Did you really actually sell 0 tickets, or close to 0?
Exactly 0.
Oh, that's perfect.
And at what point leading up, how far out from the date did you make that pivot?
Good question. It was like the conference took place in March of 2022, if I'm not mistaken. And I first reserved the space sometime in the fall. And it wasn't long. Like, it was pretty clear to me, like, you know, I market these things via my email list. And so I did the launch thing where I like told people in advance that tickets were going to go on sale. And then launch week came and went and nobody bought any tickets. And so it's like, okay, if nobody bought tickets through this way, then like just nobody's probably going to buy tickets. So it didn't take me long to decide that that wasn't going to work.
Well,
now
I would
that you
do.
now
Yeah,
that you
you
know
go.
what you know, isn't it true that like some crazy number, 60 or 80% of your ticket purchases for a conference come in like just the few final weeks?
I've heard something like that. And I don't track these things closely at all, so I don't really know how that has played out for me. There definitely is like a burst of ticket sales at the end. For me, it was definitely nothing like 60 or 80%, nowhere near that. Um, and some years I would start selling tickets, like for the 2024 conference. I think I started selling tickets in the summer of 2023. And so it was fairly evenly spread out, I think, at least in that case. And then in 2025, it was a whole different story. Ticket sales were very slow for a long time, and it was looking. I got very, very nervous. It ended up working pretty much okay, but yeah, ticket sales were very slow. It can be very unpredictable.
Yeah.
What about for Friendly and your conference, Jeremy? What?
Do you want to go,
Yeah.
Adrian?
So for Friendly, I think so. What I did was I went and toured basically all of the conferences that I could tour, and I told people about Friendly and what we were going to do, what we were planning to do, how I imagined like the conference should be. And the tickets were like slowly trickling in, but like you said, just like somewhere towards maybe, so the conference was always in September, so it's kind of mid-September, somewhere between like July, August, close to like that's when people started to buy. But before then I was like, oh my god, this is gonna ruin us, like so much money, everything, and nobody's gonna come, and it's gonna be a bad experience and everything. But it really worked out well in the end. But I think this year, for example, because it's the third one, we are almost close to the halfway point, because we have a hard stop on 140, 130, 140 seats, so we're close to halfway. So it's better. I'm more well
Going back to
adjusted.
your conference, Jason, so you were trying to sell Ruby calls to your mailing list, but I would imagine that your mailing list are like people who already experience. So you should have maybe like targeting people that have never tried programming, never tried Ruby.
Well, no, I think it's pretty much all Ruby people, and my impression is that a lot of people. I don't know what proportion of the people are like less experienced or more experienced, but I think pretty much everybody is already like in the door in some form.
Yeah. Adrian, you didn't answer why you wanted to start Friendly. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so to give you like a little bit of a context of what was happening, first Friendly was in 22 in September. In 21, I went to Wrocław in Poland, which is a more local-ish Ruby conference.
Mhm.
Amazing city, great, very technical talks. It's being held like in a university and everything, and I really liked it, and I really thought like, oh my god, I could really get into this. And still in September, I think Rail SAS happened in Los Angeles, and that was completely different, like a lot of jazz, a lot of like big production,
high
production, right? And
Yeah.
and everybody was like super jazzed about it. Again, like not too many seats and everything. Like everything was looking. So it was kind of two ends of the spectrum. And I said,
I think
like,
that was the fanciest hotel I'd ever stayed in at Rails House.
Yeah. And then there weren't too many conferences around. Like Balkan Ruby was postponed because of COVID. Uruko did the same, and so it was basically there was basically no other conference. There was only Wrocław RB in September-ish. And I said, like, why don't I make a conference? Because, I kind of like this thing, And I announced it in February. I posted a tweet like, hey, if I were to host a conference in September in Bucharest, would you like to come? And people were like, yeah, sure. How much? When? Whatever. And then I think 20 minutes after, Andrew Culver published that we're going to have Rail SAS in Athens. So it's going to be the European version.
Right. That's right.
And she got on a chat with me, and we talked about like, oh my God, this is what we want to do, and this is what we want to do. And it was actually really cool. And then Rails World was announced in about April, I think. And then I was in Vilnius with the organizers of Yuruko, and we were all like, oh my God, like, Rails World is going to be in September. So nobody's going to come to Friendly because everybody's going to go there. And I was like almost ready to cancel the conference and, do something else. But, people started buying tickets and everything. I went to different conferences and I told them about what we want to do. And yeah, that was basically the start. There weren't too many conferences happening, and I thought it was something that I would like to do.
For me, it was the culmination of a few different things. One was, for many years professionally, I was, working out of my home office, not really seeing anybody, not really talking to many people other than my clients, not really going to any conferences, mostly. I'd been to Southeast Ruby, Jason Charnes's conference a few times, and there's a conference here in town that's not Ruby specific that I'd come to, but really was out of that scene and kind of disconnected from the Ruby and Rails community largely. And there are a lot of reasons for that. One is just having young kids and stuff. But my kids were finally getting older. Then COVID hits. And then suddenly, not only am I working from home, but I have to now and can't go anywhere else. And then I was also working a lot, really hard on my mental health during that period. And one thing that my therapist had said at the time was like, she like saw like things about me, like that I need to take risks and do things that feel exciting or adventurous. And adventurous for me is not like skydiving.
Mm-hmm.
But she was like, you need to do some things. And I felt sudden permission to like try a bunch of new stuff. One was in 2022 going to several Ruby conferences because I really wanted to, but I always had trouble saying like, well, how do I don't have like a company that's paying for this. It's me, it's coming out of my pocket.
How do you justify it?
How do I justify it? Right, exactly. I decided like, the heck with it. I'm just going because I want to. I'm just going, and I'm going to go to a bunch. I went to Sin City and had a fantastic time and met almost everyone there and had great conversations and made a bunch of friends. And I think that time was like everyone kind of coming out of their bunkers and where everyone was ready to engage and be together. It felt really special. Then I go to RailsConf, Portland, really big conference. Met some more people, but not nearly as many as that I'd met at Sin City, which was also like a light bulb moment. Like, big conference doesn't mean making lots of friends, doesn't mean making, the greatest connections sometimes. And then when was it? I went to Rail SAS. I can't remember the timing on all this. And then RubyConf Mini. Those three conferences, Sin City, Rail SAS, and RubyConf Mini, were all the first time that those had happened. And it gave me this insight into the beginnings of something and what it looks like at the very start. And each one was different, but especially with these beginning, just getting started, smaller conferences, I realized this is what I want. This is what I like. I don't want to the big conferences are cool, but sometimes you just feel lost in a crowd. And in the 100-person or even less conference, man, you can make some good friends, have really good discussions, and really feel connected to the community. And that was like this light bulb. So by the time I got back home from, which I guess it was Rail SAS, coming back home, and I was like, man, it'd be so cool to take my own shot at this. And I was thinking, where would I do? I wouldn't want to do that in Greenville. That's where I live, Greenville, South Carolina. It's a fine town, but no one wants to come to Greenville. But I've talked to lots of people that want to go to Asheville, which is an hour north of me. Used to live there, love that town, cool mountain town, great food, great beer, great music, fun town to visit. It's on a lot of people's bucket lists, at least in the US. And that would be a cool town to do a conference in. And so like I'm in a airport, like waiting for a flight back from Rail SAS, and I'm like, hey, would anyone go to a Ruby conference in Asheville, Blue Ridge Ruby? And then I had like all of these replies to it. Like it was like one of my, for me at least, one of the top liked tweets, and lots of replies saying, "Go for it, do it. This would be amazing." And then I had someone that was like, "Hey, I'll help you organize," and that turned out to be Mark, my co-organizer, and that was enough. Egging on to take the leap, like all I needed, I was already poised, but all I needed was people to be like, "Do it, I dare you." I was like ready. But it was very scary. Like for me, that was the adventure I needed, like to try something that felt really scary and put myself out there. I didn't really have much like network or people that knew me. It was like just the people I'd been meeting from that year of going to conferences a bunch, but the timing was right for me.
How did you manage to sell tickets?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Let's get into it, okay?
Looking back, it's like, I knew this was like such a risk, right? Because like, how am I gonna pull this off? I can't lose money on this because I work for myself. I'm not killing it out here just making tons and tons of money where I can take 6 months off or something. I've got to break even on conference expenses at least. But I was also in a good spot where I think during COVID, there was that period of time where suddenly the demand for software developers had like went up because everyone's like, oh man, everyone's home and we need more software. And so the work got up. And so I ended up like having like a year where I just worked like crazy. And so I had a little bit of surplus, more than usual, I guess. And so I was like willing to take some kind of small bet on that. And that was like putting some money down on a venue and going for it. But how did I do this ticket sales? I think I knew that sales and marketing was huge, like that I had to nail that. But I think I also got lucky in hitting a wave of demand that came after COVID, after things opened back up. And that actually leads me to this spreadsheet that I was sharing pre-show with you all, where I went to rubyconferences.org and pulled all of the conference events from when they started tracking this, which looks like around 2014 is where we have solid numbers about this. Should I share this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. That's a different one. Looking at like conference, all the conferences here, we've got almost 400 conferences since 2014. There's a couple of like, there's one each year from 2011, 12, and 13. I'm guessing that they just backfilled those on rubyconferences.org. But starting here, we're seeing like 49 conferences in 2014. It starts to drop. My sense is that there's a dip at 2017, which seems to like coincide with what I sense to be like a dip in the interest around Ruby, kind of like a cooling, where people were moving other places, or maybe it was even like a cohort had moved through kind of Ruby and Rails and maybe had moved on. I don't know. But then we see a resurgence prior to COVID. So it starts going back up. We have 37 conferences in 2019. And then the drop off starts happening. 2020 still had a lot. I'm guessing that some of these ended up being canceled. Yeah. And then and then down to 21, 22, we're down, at 11 and 13 conferences. Then, 2022 was that year that I think that I started going back to conferences and went to 4 that year. And I sensed that there was a lot of demand. And there was also a lot of fear, like, what if the conferences don't come back? I kept having that conversation with people saying like, well, what if they don't come back? Like, what would we do? That would be terrible Ruby conferences don't come back. And then that was another thing I was thinking, which was if a lot of people took COVID as an opportunity, conference organizers took COVID as an opportunity to kind of wind down what they were doing and not come back, who's gonna pick up the torch? Who's gonna carry it forward? And that was another reason for me. It was like, well, shoot, like I want to see more of this. It's kind of like you don't miss something till it's gone. Like you don't really value it maybe until it's something you can't get access to anymore. And so the fear of that was a driver as well. And I think we saw demand come back up in 2023, and then it peaks. And we actually come to 2023 numbers, ended up looking very close to 2020 numbers. 2024 goes past 2019 numbers. So we're up to 39. We're back into the territory of where we were pre-COVID, and in a slight growth from 2017. But what's interesting is this year is down. And the way I'm interpreting that right now is that there was a surge of demand after COVID. A lot of people were like, I want to get out to conferences. I haven't been to one. So everyone's doing that. And they may also have had some more budget around conferences, either on the sponsor side or on the attendee side, in terms of of companies having some kind of budget for that. And then it peaks in 2024, and then we've got like a dip here, which I'm interpreting maybe as a cooling after that initial resurge of, man, we need to get out there. And now now that the options are available, it's sort of somewhat maybe exhausted that. I don't know if that's the case, but that's how I'm reading the data.
There's also some things that I noticed in Europe from 23 to 24. Some conferences moved from the fall to the spring. So we have they're very close to each other. I know some conferences just took a break, for example, like RubyConf Thailand. So there are some of those, but I do see what you mean about like this cooling period. Like, okay, we had this spike, and now we're like, okay, we're good. Like we don't have to push it or anything.
Yeah. I also heard people saying things like in 2022 and 23, they were saying, man, we need regional Ruby conferences. Man, I hope they come back. And then I started hearing maybe in 2024, okay, they're back, or maybe we have too many. I almost started to hear that sense from people, which is weird because it's still not where we were previously. We haven't hit the numbers that we were at 2014. People didn't seem to, have an issue there. So I don't know if there's also maybe even a consolidation around that, because it doesn't necessarily mean that less people are attending conferences. It's just the number of conferences. So there could also be like an expansion in the number of conferences, and then eventually like a consolidation down to a few that kind of like can survive, over the longer period.
It'd be a really interesting number to see, like the total addressable market for how many people are actually attending.
That's what I'd like to see.
Conferences across all the conferences.
We'd have to get all the organizers to pull all their numbers and put them, which I think that would be like a really interesting project.
Stats. Another thing that I think is interesting is maybe our behavior changed since 2014, 17, like, being in person, at these kinds of events was maybe a little bit more important for networking. Like maybe, we had the internet and everything, but it wasn't like now, it wasn't like, like LinkedIn, TikTok, and all of this, like Discord, you do have Discord, and many people kind of found their, place to meet other people and to talk and to socialize and to network there. Like, there are quite one big number of Discord servers out there. So maybe there's a change of behavior, and that's why we're not, let's say, reaching those numbers pre-COVID.
I think what's interesting is seeing that if it hadn't been for COVID, it looked like the numbers were going up after that 2017 dip, which to me is a sign of health. I don't know what to make of this year. But otherwise, it feels like looking at 2024, then the health looks good. To me, it looks good.
Yeah. And there's one thing that happens in Europe is every year we get at least one new conference, because the conference organizer of Euruco that the traveling conference that goes from country to country, they start their own conference next year. That's what usually happens. You get Yuruko for the first time, you're overwhelmed, you're like, why did I do this? I never want to do this again. The conference ends, Yuruko goes to another city, and you're gonna say, yeah, I want to do this again. I'm gonna make my own conference. So we have that stream of new conferences.
That's actually that's true. Like I only did Blue Ridge once. The second year, I handed it over to my co-organizer Mark and the rest of the volunteer team to lead because they really wanted to see it again. I knew I just couldn't the second year, but immediately after doing that, like I knew I couldn't really do. I couldn't afford the time away from build hours, and I couldn't afford the energy. But it left a hole because it felt so good to create this event and create this experience for people. I hadn't done a thing like that where 100 people get together and have this shared experience. And like I know it wasn't all me, but if I hadn't done that, they wouldn't have that experience wouldn't have happened, right? And that feels really cool and special. And I wanted to do it again, and I couldn't. So my last year it was like, well, I can organize a Ruby backpacking trip and have 5 Rubyists and a product manager come backpacking on the Appalachian Trail with me, and we'll call it Ruby on Trails. And that was my consolation for not being able to do the same kind of thing. But it put a desire in me to create more experiences for people, and that's probably just not going to go away now.
The Ruby on Trails, I haven't been paying a ton of attention to what's going on in the world. Did that happen? Did that already happen?
Yeah, it happened back in the fall. I had 5 Rubyists and a product manager, flew into Asheville. We picked him up. I had planned this route, and we spent 3 days, I think, backpacking in Western North Carolina, taking him on one of my favorite sections of the Appalachian Trail, which is a 2,000 something mile long trail that extends from Georgia to Maine. So basically almost the full length of the Appalachian Mountains, eastern
Why did you
U.S.
do the whole thing?
Someday. It is on my bucket list. Yeah.
You put a lot of emphasis on the product manager. And it even sounds like a joke, like 5 Rubies and the product manager go into the mountains.
Well,
and they are not allowed to return until they ship a product.
Well, I kind of felt like, he came in with some Python experience. I felt like maybe he needed to write some Ruby code before we let him out on the trail, but I made a concession because he was a friend of one of the other Rubyists that was going. So he ended up being a great guy. He had the best food, and I think he brought bourbon or something. Something in a flask that was great. So that was pretty nice. He was yeah.
So I don't want to derail the conversation, so feel free to steer it back in a different direction. But I'm curious about Ruby on Trails. It's very small, only 5 Rubyists and a product manager, 6 people. I'm curious about the supply and demand. Did more people want to come than you could accommodate? If so, how did you pick who got to go to it and all that stuff?
More. So that was another thing where as soon as I thought of the name, I was sitting in bed one night and was like, Ruby on Trails. Oh, this is perfect. And it was I needed a name before I could put it all together. Because I love backpacking and I love Ruby. And then I was thinking I want this. I want to do an event. What could I do? And then that just came to me all of a sudden. I'm like, okay, this is perfect. So then I tweeted out, ended up getting 20 people on my little mailing list for Ruby on Trails. So I had a bunch, had quite a few people, I had twice as many people DMing me and emailing me saying when are you going to do this? Do you think I could do it? What would it take and all that stuff. So I have a number of people that are okay, I can't do it this year, but I'd love to do it. If you do it again, are you going to do it again? So, and actually I think everybody that came, they want to do it again. So we're planning to do it again. They wanted to do 2 this year. They wanted to do one in the spring and one in the fall. I couldn't make the spring happen. So I think I'm aiming toward fall again. But we may have larger numbers this time. Part of that is I've done a lot of solo backpacking, but I've never led a group. And I knew also that sites on these kind of trails it may be difficult to get large numbers. So 7 people, 6 people was actually pretty ideal. I might get up to 10, but it'd be hard to do anything more than that. But I did have some demand. I know it's like super niche, right? Like, who were the Rubyists that also like backpacking? Like, it turned out like most of them hadn't gone backpacking before. They might have been car camping and things like that, but they hadn't done backpacking. So quite a few of them were like trying out their gear for the first time and kind of figuring out their setup, and that was maybe part of the fun of it. So if you'd ever thought about that,
it's very intimate.
Yeah.
You get to spend time up close and personal with the illustrious Jeremy Smith.
Big time. Yeah. If you like walk up to like accidentally walk by someone that's trying to do their business out in the woods, that's definitely up close and personal.
That's funny. So one of my thoughts as a candidate to what I might do after Sin City Ruby, now that I'm not doing that anymore, is something like that, like 5 or 10 people, 20 people, something like really small. And doing it somewhere in Michigan so that it's more in my backyard, so I don't have to fly across the country to host a conference, which is crazy. Part of why I'm not super interested in doing that anymore. But I have some concerns. One of my big concerns is like, say it's like 10 people and we do something like, I don't know, we rent a cabin or something like that. But what if among the people who come is like some annoying weirdo and like they just ruin it for everybody? Like, what if Adrian comes? That would just be like terrible.
It would be. He's gonna monopolize. He's gonna take over.
He's gonna talk about Apple, and you should use Apple in every app. And
oh, that's funny.
Run a workshop, forced workshop.
But I'm glad that Ruby on Trails went well. That's kind of inspiring.
Well, there were some incidents. We we ran into a nest of hornets, and one guy got stung a bunch, and that was really stressful. I'm actually allergic, so I'm thinking about this all the time. And I did a whole safety section when we did our Zoom call in prep for it. But that's never happened to me before going solo, but it happened this time, and that part was really stressful, trying to figure out what to do. So there were some ups and downs with it, but it seems like mostly everyone was happy. Like, looking back, they have some fond memories about it, and they want to do it again.
So of the 6 people who went, how many actually came back alive?
All of them. Yeah, we made it out. And I had contingency plans. Like, we're out of cell service in some areas, so that's something I'm always thinking about, because being allergic, like, you have a matter of hours to get to a hospital if you start going into anaphylactic shock. So I'm always thinking about that. But yeah, we managed to make it, and I think about safety a lot. So that's something that's I think super important, especially if you're taking people that are maybe new to backpacking out. Yeah, overall, like, people were happy. We had a great last night. Oh, the other thing is, when you go backpacking, you're eating camp food, and so that final day, you've been like pushing your body really hard, eating kind of like food that's not great. So when you finally get to sit down at a restaurant, have a beer and a hamburger, it's like the best meal. And so that's the thing that like solidifies it for everybody, that end thing of like, oh man, we got some great photos, we saw some beautiful stuff, but now we're eating this awesome meal in a restaurant. We stink, we're like, smell like smoke, but we're like, actually in that case we were able to shower and stuff, but you're still feeling the soreness or whatever coming out of the woods, and you feel like you did something big and no one else knows in the restaurant, but we do, and we had, we're just enjoying this great meal or whatever. So yeah, that's
really cool. I imagine that responsibility that you're talking about is probably one of the things that is the biggest burden when you're putting on a conference. Is everything going to run smooth? Are people going to be safe? Are people going to have fun? Like, how do you manage that?
Man, that was so stressful for me. Like, that, I can be a pretty anxious person, and for Blue Ridge, I was so stressed about that. And what's interesting about a conference is I had to think about a bunch of different groups of people that I hadn't thought about before. It was like simultaneously thinking about, how do I make the sponsors happy and do what's good for them? How do I make the attendees happy and do what's good for them? How do I take care of the volunteers and make sure that they're, getting the value they want out of this? How do I make sure I take care of the speakers? And so it's all these different groups and with distinct need. Oh, and the vendors too, like the place that you're, the venue, the person that you're working with at the venue, or your video person or AV person, whatever it is. Like, you've got all of these people to manage, and they all need something different from you. That is super stressful. But like, in terms of safety, yeah, I was definitely thinking a lot about I had to get insurance, and I hadn't even thought about that. Like, oh, I do need insurance. And
like,
yeah,
did you
the
get insurance for yourself or for the whole group?
For the event, for me, okay. So this is when I got the venue, and I'm guessing you all had this too, Adrian and Jason, but the venue required insurance for the event. That was not very expensive, because it's like people are just coming in and sitting down in the chairs and then leaving, and it's fine. But I wanted to do activities the day after the conference that were basically sponsored by like, here are your options. You can go on a hike in the mountains with one of our volunteers. You can go tubing on the river. Tubing is like, it's really cool. Like, I don't know, it's maybe just a Southern American thing. I don't know. That like, you get in this large tube and just float down a river. It's really fun.
We do that here.
Yeah. And then also visiting the Biltmore, which is like this, basically the America's closest equivalent to a European castle, I guess. Anyway, so given these options, but then I was thinking, what if somebody gets hurt on the hike? That's on me, right? Like, if they slip and get injured, and there's all these medical bills. And I know of other conference organizers who were almost sued because they did a kickball game with a bunch of developers, and two guys ran into each other. One was the conference organizer. Actually, it happened right in front of me. One was the conference organizer. Another was an attendee. They were both going in the outfield trying to catch this kickball, right? They back up into each other, hit each other, and the conference organizer falls on the attendee. The attendee breaks his arm. He's a designer. He breaks his mouse hand arm, right? Turns out the guy doesn't have health insurance. I'm trying to decide if I want to share this.
No.
Yeah. I think I haven't said what the conference is, right? So this was super stressful. And this guy was like in a lot of stress. And so that kind of scenario like is playing in my mind, thinking like, what if that happens? This could like ruin me. Like,
Jeremy, we don't have that in Europe, like, or in Romania. Nobody sues people because they played football.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
That's it. Walk it off. Go to the hospital, and we're done.
Yeah.
And I think if Jason should get insurance for what happens in Vegas, I don't think that
Forget
conference
about
would
it.
happen.
Well, there's a difference between what happens officially by the conference, like you organize it, and then what happens that people organize outside of it. And so I think that's the way you can manage that. But by not making things official, you also might make it difficult for people to join into the opportunities that happen that you might want to make sure the experience is good for. Adrian, when you took us... Oh, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that we talked a lot about the downsides and risks and stuff like that. And that brings the question to my mind of like, why bother doing any of this stuff? We've talked a little bit about how we got started with it, but like, if you guys are interested in continuing and doing more of this stuff in the future, despite all the risks and costs and downsides and all that stuff, why do you want to keep doing it?
It's for the money, right?
Yeah. My Porsche.
Yeah.
Jesus, yeah. That's a good question. And yeah, that popped into my head. Every time I announced it, every time it happened. And it kind of popped into my head when you announced, Jason, that it's going to be the last Sin City. And it was a little bit like, hey, if you kind of like these kinds of events, if you think you're going to like it, you should go, because you never know when it's the last one. You never know when, if you're never going to have that opportunity again. Because like, from what I spoke with other people, and I think with Jeremy as well at some point, like doing it once, there's also this thrill, the first time when you do it, because it's a challenge, it's something new, you discover things. This is, probably baked into our heads or something, as developers. We want to discover new things, we want to learn, we want to see if we can do it and everything. But then keeping it going for 5 years, for 10 years, that's a different job.
Yeah,
right? That's a different mindset, that's a different type of person. Yeah, you need to figure out if you really are that kind of person.
Yeah, indeed. I think I recently learned about the concept of something called a dopaminergic personality, where you kind of thrive off of these dopamine hits. I certainly think I have a dopaminergic personality, probably at least some of you guys too.
Yeah.
And so the idea of doing something like this, like the first time, it's really exciting because it's novel.
Yeah.
And even the second time too. But then for me, the third time, it was like the third Sin City Ruby, it was great. It was just as good as the other ones, but it wasn't different.
Yeah.
It wasn't particularly novel. And I had already decided beforehand that I wasn't going to do it more. But like the more years you do it, the less novel it is each time you do it. And so the excitement kind of wears off. And so my question to myself now, I haven't really thought about this much before right now, but like if I'm going to keep doing something like year after year, how do I do it in such a way that it stays interesting in the long run?
Yeah, I learned this about myself a long time ago. When I was younger, I'm the oldest of 5 kids. My siblings always wanted to build forts and then play house, and they always needed me to help with them. And I loved building the fort, but I did not want to play house. As soon as I built the thing, like as soon as I figured out how to make it happen, I'm done. Like, if you want to go play house in the fort, that's cool. I just want to make it. Can I pull this off, right? That really helped me like realize like this is like how I am. Like the thing that I want to know is like, can I pull this off? Whether it's building a product or doing a podcast or a conference. Now I've like for whatever reason, like with podcasting, I've been like able to find enough interest, maybe because each interview is new or something like that. But if I felt like something got repetitive where I was just showing up to produce the same thing over and over again for other people, that would be really hard. And I know some people can really do that, but it's just that's not me.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things there. Like I use the metaphor of like designing the machine versus turning the crank. And like I want to build the machine, I don't really want to turn the crank. And organizing a conference is a lot of turning the crank. Just like contracts, emails, all that kind of stuff. It's not like terribly interesting creative work. And the other thing I was going to say, I forgot what it was. But I remember what I was going to say. There's something to do with proportion. So like with a podcast, it's lightweight,
That's true.
At least you can choose for it to be lightweight. You record conversations, you put it out there. It's not an enormous amount of work. I've found it to be pretty sustainable. I've been doing my podcast for like, I don't know how many years, a lot of years at this point. But a conference is obviously a very heavy lift. It famously chews people up and spits them out and they get burnout and all that stuff. And I'll be a little bit candid. With my conference experience, part of my hope was that it would bring me some career benefits. And I certainly think it has, but some of these things are not particularly attributable. And so it's like, okay, I've been putting on this conference, a certain amount of people know about it. That gives me some kind of halo effect. How much? I'm not sure, because I have these other things like the podcast and book and whatever. Those also give me a halo effect. It all gets mixed together. I can't
attribution is hard.
Yeah, exactly. I can't tell what benefits come from what sources and stuff like that. And so part of it feels like all this work for a questionable payoff. One thing I will say that's a huge benefit from conferences is developing relationships with the speakers and attendees, especially the speakers. Like one of the really cool things at this last Sin City Ruby, at the last minute, there's a whole story behind this, but at the last minute, I added Dave Thomas as the keynote speaker, the author of The Pragmatic Programmer.
That's cool.
And that afforded me the opportunity to, first of all, meet Dave Thomas. And he came to the speaker dinner that we had before the conference. One of the days I took Dave to lunch, and so we got to talk a bit more. And now, I'm just kind of pals with Dave Thomas. It's like, what other scenario would there be where I get to be friends with these like high profile people? So there's definitely that. But going forward, my question is like, okay, how can I make the reward feel like more proportionate to all the effort? Because frankly, right now, the payoff compared to the effort is like, it's not super clear that that's there. And I think that's why a lot of people get burnt out.
Yeah.
It definitely isn't. It doesn't pay off monetarily. I haven't talked to really any conference organizer that says that. And maybe it used to in the past. Like I have a sense that the early 2010s, mid 2010s, like was a different time where there was a lot more sponsorship money. And maybe you can make a go of that. And there are some outliers where I think they turn it into a business and can make it survive outside of the Ruby space. But like there has to be something else. If you're the kind of person, like it sounds like we are, where you part of what you're doing, like the thrill of it is part of what you get is the thrill of, can I pull this off? Then doing something new is a big part of that. And if you're not getting other kinds of benefits, like a monetary benefit or a direct line to your business, then it gets harder. I think there is another part of it, which is for me, it was one of the it was kind of like an emotional high when everyone was clapping at the end of the conference. For me, like that felt pretty good. And then I'm like suddenly crying in Jim Remzick's arms like, because it's over, and just feel, I don't know, it just felt very emotional. And
that's the perfect guy for it, by the way.
Oh my gosh,
getting hugged by Jim Remzick, I imagine
it was pretty nice.
So nice. Yeah,
it was. And I want to do that again. I want to have that again. I don't want to have to do all the stuff that's like repetitive over and over. Like that part is like, ugh. But creating an experience like that and then having it, like being able to see that people really had a good time, man, that feels good. I like that.
Yeah, and I'm sure you guys have experienced like people coming up to you during or after the conference and just being like, hey, this is great. I'm having a great time.
Yeah. I mean, just 2 weeks ago, I had one of the scholarship tickets. This lady had come and she said it was one of the best conferences she'd ever, it's still like for her, it was one of the best conference experiences she's had and something that was really important to her career. And that was so cool. Like I still occasionally getting something like that from this one time that I did something. It feels pretty good.
Yeah. Andrew Culver told me, I'm not sure if I buy it, but Andrew Culver told me Sin City Ruby changed my life.
Yeah. I mean, like, wow. I think I've told you that too, Jason. Like it was a huge, yeah. That was like a pivotal change. And it wasn't like, I can't, again, attribute everything to that one thing, but it was like an inflection point in my career.
You came away a different man.
Yeah, I really did. I mean, and it was poised to happen, I think, in a lot of ways, but I needed a place like that for it to happen, for the, like the relationships to develop and for the light bulb to go off for myself.
Why was that? Was it like, I don't mean this in a self-deprecating way, but it was like, if Jason can do it, anybody can do it kind of thing. It's like, it doesn't have to be a big to-do. Like you can just kind of have some people get together in a room and that's all it has to be.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely like, that helped, seeing like you can do this on a small scale and have a really great impact.
I'm the velvet underground of conferences.
I mean, it wasn't just that. It was also that I made so many friends in that small conference that by the time I got to RailsConf Portland, I would have been lost in the crowd if I hadn't gone to Sin City. I wouldn't have. Honestly, I hung out and like I made better friends at Sin City than I did at RailsConf Portland. Everyone was still masking, which the reason I say that was like at that point, it was so hard to go into big spaces with everyone masked, and you're like, all right, all those people circled up over there, are they GitHubbers or Shopify? Like, where do I go? I can't even see people. Like, you're not even seeing like people's face. Like, can I talk to these people or not? Like, I don't know where to go. And it was cool because the talks were great, and it was big, and there were some special things that happened there, like some kind of like evening activities that I really liked, but it was mostly with people that I met at Sin City. And that was just a different experience that some people go to conferences for the technical stuff, and some people are going for the community. And that's what it finally clicked for me, I think. And that's what I wanted. And I realized that smaller conferences can do that in a way that big conferences can't.
Yeah, and by the way, a lot of companies take what I frankly think is a wrong-headed approach to conferences, where they think the benefit to them as a company to sending people to conferences is like the learning that happens. Some places even say like, okay, we'll pay for you to go to a conference, but you have to come back and like
give us a talk
to everybody on what you learned.
Yeah.
And I think that is so the wrong idea. It's like conferences are a treat. They're like a perk, and the benefit to you as a company is you can hire good people who like going to conferences, and you're like, oh, I can go to company A or company B, but company A will pay for me to go to all these conferences. That sounds really attractive. That's where it benefits you as a company.
Also, but talking of conferences and like conference activities, I'm getting quite tired of the format of like a conference is just the talks. A few weeks ago when me, Adrian, and Jeremy met at Balkan Ruby, there were really long breaks. So there was like a big focus on talking to each other. Then there's like the unconference format that happens somewhere in Germany that like you never know who the speakers are, and you have to vote for the talks. And before COVID, I really loved visiting the kind of events like startup weekends or hackathons, not like Ruby specific, where you come to an event, you team up with a bunch of people and you hack on something, and then there's like some voting in the end. So this is the kind of events that I kind of miss. And I think last year at RubyConf in the US, there was like a day where like a hack day where everybody was just like working together. So I think that could be a great idea for like future conferences, focused not so much on talks and speakers, but on like conference like activities together.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I think the Hack Day it's a cool event, and it's a nice opportunity for open source open source maintainers to talk to their users and get to contribute. So we were at Uruko last year in Bosnia, and Joel and like there were people like just coding there. They just met. They knew each other from online, and they worked together on projects, and they just got together like, okay, let's finish this off. We have 2 hours before I want to go to this talk, and they would just code. So I think having a day for that's a very cool thing. But I guess like that's one of the activities that you can do as a large conference, like as a big conference. But even as a small conference, you have other opportunities, right? For example, we do after the first day, we go and do walking tours for everyone. Like I can't imagine doing walking tours for 1,000 people, right? That's you can't do that. So again, there are different nuances to every size.
And I was that walking tour, like going into the Transylvanian mountains the day after Friendly, solidified a lot of the relationships and even the topics, but particularly the people, in a way that just the conference by itself just couldn't.
Yeah.
And I think especially walking and talking is perfect for that, because you've just met a bunch of people, but if they were all sitting together in a mixer and you're trying to like force them to interact and like kind of integrate their learning, or try to develop the relationship, it would be too stressful or too like too much pressure. But like doing this walk, like spending a day walking in the mountains, and we're visiting a castle and we're going up to a peak, gives you plenty of space to just have lots of discussions as you're moving around this with this group of 20 to 30 people. That works really well.
I just want to highlight, the forced
socialization.
Forced socialization that Jason does. It sounds so weird, but actually, I did have some nice conversations there and found out about some personal things about some people that I admire from Twitter and from the community, and that was quite awesome. It sounds stressful and sounds like cliche a little bit, but it was really cool. So thanks, Jason.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, people like that, and we did that again at this most recent one, and people liked it again. I have a question for you, Adrian. I have a vague memory because I went to Friendly RB in 2023.
Yeah.
And I have a vague memory of you saying something like, "I didn't know if people would want to come like to my neck of the woods or whatever," and it turns out people did. And so I'm curious your thoughts on that. First of all, do I have that memory right? And just how did that experience go for you and stuff like that?
Yeah, so just for a little bit of context, I live in Romania and I had the conference here in Bucharest. And many people told me, and I think you as well, Jason, or somebody, like I would have never had Bucharest on my list of go-to places, not very recently, but I'm so happy I came because this was kind of like a surprise. I'm paraphrasing. People said we have like good food, good coffee, a nice city.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much it's safe and everything. It's pretty cheap if you're coming from Western Europe and the US. And yeah, I had that. I was a little bit afraid that people are not gonna come because, like I said, like it's Bucharest, Romania, Eastern Europe. It's not Paris, it's not London, it's not Spain or another exotic place. And I had the surprise that most people, I think in 2023, we had only about 20 people from Romania coming to the conference. So everybody else was from other places.
Yeah, that was cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. To me, go for it. Yeah.
To me, a big part of the appeal was precisely because it wasn't London or Paris or one of these places that everybody goes to. It's like, you get back home and you tell people I went to Romania, and they're like, "Oh, Romania! Like, what was that like? Why'd you go there? All that stuff." And I'm partly asking for my selfish purposes. If I were to have an event here in Michigan, do people want to come to Michigan? To me, it's like, why would anybody want to come here? Like, part of me thinks that, but also part of me thinks, a similar thing. Like maybe my like boring place that I've always known is somebody else's, like that they might find it interesting.
I think it is like that. Like, I think part of what makes conferences exciting is people going to see a place that was maybe on their list, or a place that they were at least, it was like a perk, a bonus to be able to like go to this conference, meet these, see these people, learn some things, but also experience a place that you haven't been before and that maybe something about. So tying to the region and what makes the region special, so going into the Transylvania mountains makes a lot of sense because that's a lot of people outside of Romania, that's their connection to what Romania is. And I'm sure for Romanians, it's like, oh, we've got more than this, please. This is not yet, but for people that are outside, that's what they think of. And so like doing the thing that region
offers
is known for. Yeah. And offers, like, I think it helps. It gives people a connection to that place. And yeah, it feels like obvious in some ways, especially if you live there, but for everyone else, it's a good time and they'll remember it and they'll like have that deeper connection to that place on top of the event itself. And so maybe, like if it's Michigan, I'm thinking like lakes or, like, or the woods, or those are things I'm thinking about for Michigan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Isn't there a big tulip festival in Michigan?
There is in Holland.
Holland? Yeah. Okay.
Dutch settlers. Cool. Yeah.
Somebody was telling me about that the other day.
What kind of festival?
Tulip.
Oh, the flower?
The flowers.
They have all these wooden shoes and stuff like that.
Michigan and Amsterdam and Netherlands, basically.
Yeah.
Talking of Netherlands, are you guys going to Rails World?
I wish.
I didn't get a ticket. I didn't try for a ticket either, though.
Well, who knows?
Yeah. I haven't talked to you about it, Jess, yet, but maybe, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Well, we always have the off chance that we can slide in through the back door through a bus sprout program.
That's what I was thinking of. Yes.
I'll give you my badge. No worries. No worries.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel that we're thinking about what else. Like one of the highlights of friendly of the first one, and one of the reasons why I wanted to do this was Jeremy sitting at the. So if you remember, Jason, you weren't there, but we went to the mountains on the last day, and we had some troubles with the trains. They were delayed like 2.5 hours, and we were like checking every half hour to see if the train is coming. We were like 30 people in a far away place from Bucharest, and I was like a little bit worried. Like, okay, let's see how am I gonna get these people back home?
You seem very calm and relaxed. You're always like. You're a good host. I don't know how you do that.
No, it was good. I was a little bit stressed, but at the end, it was, I think, 7 p.m. or something. We were sitting in the station and we were waiting for a train, and Jeremy was alone, and like you had your hands in your pockets and you were like, saying to yourself, like, this was amazing. This was a great day. This was so cool. And I kind of noticed it, and that really stuck with me. And I said, like, yeah. That was this was a good event. Like, if people say that, people like Jeremy, like, they travel from the other half of the world, that's great. So I think that's one of the motivation why I kept doing it.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the best days I've had in the last few years, and many of my best days are the day after a conference, if there's some other thing that we were doing or something, like those conferences, especially in a new place with new friends, doing something really interesting, engaging my mind and, relational connection, like all of that together, like, it's very fulfilling. So yeah, I think I love experiencing that. And it's really fun also to create those experiences for other people. And that's the bug that I think is, once it bites, it's like you're not going to be able to get rid of it. I am wondering though, like, Jason, I think maybe, at least for you and maybe Adrian as well, maybe part of what we need is just to do more different types of things so that it's not the same thing. I think it's okay and probably good for a conference not to go on forever. I was talking to my favorite local brewery here in town, like it's a neighborhood tap room. And when they first opened, they had this one IPA that I just loved. And then they took it off, they stopped making it. And I was telling the owner, like, oh, I miss Bone Clocks. Like, I wish you'd bring it back. He's like, oh, like, he seemed kind of apologetic. And I was like, at the same time, please don't, because the fact that you don't bring it back, like, makes it special. Like, I want to, like, when people say, oh, I miss that, I wish that, I wish I could still have that. It's like saying, like, I wish I could see, like, this band when they were first getting started and now they're playing stadiums and I can't get the same experience anymore. Like, you don't want to go to the reunion tour. You wish you had been there, in the 90s when they were first getting started. That's the thing that you want. And it's okay for you just to want that. So, like, leave people wanting more, leave people wanting, like, that thing, but then go on to something else. I think it's okay to do that too. I think that's really important for organizers not to feel like they're on the hook for forever because people had a good experience once and now I just got to keep doing it and it's a slog because now people expect it. Yeah. No, every single one is an act of love and, dedication and is a risk and is stressful, and people shouldn't expect that they just go on forever. And sometimes
that's a really good point. Yeah. And I'm very careful not to do things just because other people want it or expect me to. Mm-hmm. Because, like, you can't do things on that big of a scale, like, just to be nice. Like, you can, I don't know, you can do something small for somebody else just because they want to and you make them feel good or whatever, but, like, you can't, like, host a conference forever just because other people want you to. It has to be like you have to get something back out of it yourself.
Yeah.
And
Great-
in terms
great
of
point.
effort and time, how long does it take to organize the conference? Like, I know you, Jeremy, you did some calculation.
Yeah. For me, it was roughly 250 hours. And getting started, the very first time would take the longest. Even just like building the marketing site myself, was a few weeks to get something good. That was actually one big thing for me, was like making sure that if I was a no name and no one knew who I was, or I didn't have any connections, that I had to do something to look professional and look like I knew what I was doing, like present well. So I even like paid for branding, and I've done a lot of marketing sites. So I did the design work and built this out and did as much detail work as I could to present the kind of conference experience, because like that can be like a sign, not always, but can be a helpful sign of like what people can expect based on the level of detail and in
Totally.
your copy writing and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, 250 hours probably total. I think maybe if I did it again, I could be around 150, maybe close to 100, but I wouldn't think less than that.
And dollar-wise, you were what, like 10, 12,000 out of pocket?
It was
Pocket.
it was
I mean, initially, before you sold any
right.
tickets.
Oh yeah, the big thing, like if you're doing a conference, that I learned was like the main thing you got to do is get a venue locked down, because you can't set dates until you have a venue. If you don't know where it's going to be and when, you can't do anything. So you do the venue, and usually venues are going to require some down payment. And for mine, it was like 50%, right at the point of contract, and then 50% 60 days out from the event itself. So I was sitting in this beginning of December, I think, pull the trigger on an event in May. And the venue, it was like $7,000, I think. So I had to put 3,500 down. That was like, I knew that was like what I could lose if it turned out like in 2 months that I got no response, no tickets, no one signed up for the CFP, like all of that. Then I could, what I'd lose is 3,500, and whatever time I put into it at that point.
What about you two guys? Is that roughly?
Jason, do you want to go?
Yeah. The first year, I think we lost like $2,000. I think the venue was like $10,000 or something like that.
But you put up 10K to begin with, or how much cash did you need to get the ball rolling?
I don't remember. I think maybe like $5,000 or something like that.
Okay, that tracks.
The second year was similar because we did it at the same place, and we actually made a little money the second year. And then the third year, we switched venues because the first venue no longer exists, the Tropicana.
Was it because of the conference?
Your terms were not as
we
favorable.
blew the roof off.
Yeah.
The terms were not as favorable.
We had to do a hotel block.
They made you do a hotel block. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, that sucks.
Yeah, and so it was like, $50,000-$60,000 worth of liability. We didn't have to put anything up for the hotel block, but we did have to fill it, or else we'd have to pay this big penalty.
Was it up to you were on the hook for a certain percentage of the occupancy?
80%.
80%.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it seemed to be like when I was looking, it was 80 to 90% when I was talking to various hotels.
Yeah, and we didn't fill it up, not by a long shot. And we don't know how much we're going to owe. We still have to settle up with the hotel. They have to let us know how everything shook out. Because if just by coincidence those rooms get booked up anyway, then we're not on the hook for it anymore. So hopefully some of that happened. But that's
still hanging over your head. This is what people don't understand. That sucks. The event is over, and you're still having to think about like, what kind of bill is coming my way? And everyone else has moved on.
Yep.
Everyone else gets to move on. You still got to live with this stress of like, what do I do? What is it even going to look like? That anticipation is terrible.
Yeah. And so I'm not going to be going to any conferences this year because I spent all my money on having a conference.
Yeah. I think people
start
need
a
to understand
GoFundMe
that.
for Jason.
Well,
you spent some money.
people
You're
did
right.
something very nice, which was Irina Nazarova and some other people held an ad hoc auction during Sin City Ruby.
Cool.
So we raised like a few $1,000, and so that softened the blow a little bit. So that was very
That's
nice
cool.
of them.
Yeah, I'm glad they did that.
That's
I
awesome.
think this was one thing that Jason Charnes told me is like, don't do a hotel block. Because I talked to one of the things I did that I'm really happy about, and I would recommend to anybody who wants to run a conference, was I talked to 7 different conference organizers ahead of it. I think I probably talked to Jason, I talked to you, Adrian, I don't know if I talked to you, but I talked to 7 different organizers and took all kinds of notes. I just had an hour with each of them, and everybody told me something that I needed to know, something different that I needed to know. And one of those things from Jason was like, don't do this. Like, this is how I lost money, and you don't have to. I still had people asking me like, hey, do you have a hotel block? And then I'm like, oh crap, did I do it wrong? Like, everyone's expecting this now. It was fine. And maybe in Vegas you can't do that. I'm guessing that's probably the issue. Like Vegas, maybe you have to do that, but in Asheville,
the
it
MGM was like the least worst deal we could find.
Man. That's terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, and it feels bad when people ask if there's a hotel block and you have to say no.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel as bad as losing tens of thousands of dollars.
Exactly. People don't understand. I think that's like, people just don't realize, and they like, if they've gone to other conferences and have this built-in expectation, they don't understand the other side of it. They just don't. And so they think this is like what they can assume, but they just don't understand,
Yeah, like Rails World, for example, like they are losing so much money, but they have so much money to put toward it. They can afford to lose $1 million. I'm just guessing. They can afford to lose that huge amount of money. People like us obviously can't.
And that counts towards everything in the whole organization, area. Like, if you want to do it or not, if it's worth it, because you have a family back home, and everybody's asking like, what are you gonna do? Like, what if you lose money? Like, it's the family's money and everything, and it's a fair question after all of that. Yeah. I was quite lucky because we didn't have to do any of that. Like the biggest expense I had to do in the beginning, I paid the designer to basically design and build our website, and that was about it. The venue was, he's a quirky guy, the guy that has the venue, and he said like, hey, it's okay, I have you written down in the calendar. It's okay, we don't need to do a contract or anything.
Whoa. That's nice.
That's great.
And you've seen the venue. It's a beautiful
It's a cool venue. Yeah. It's not a weird venue. Yeah. It's like,
yeah, it's a cool venue and everything, because it's a club there. Like, one thing that I only found out this year is that every day, or actually not every day, after Thursday, after we finished, they have a club night there. So we have to clean up and get out of it. And people are going to come and party over there. And they even had an event this year between our days. In the evening, they had an event. You couldn't see anything. They just, put everything back together. And
nice.
yeah, so we didn't have a lot of things to pay. But afterwards, yeah, like, the photo and video crew and the venue and everything. But we're in Eastern Europe. Like, I'm sure I didn't. The cost of our event, wasn't as big or as risky as yours. So that's one thing. If you're in Eastern Europe or somewhere where it's cheaper, like, yeah, you can think about that, because it's not like such a big expense.
Yeah, I think the region really can play a big role in the economics. I don't know what your budget was, Jason, but for me, it was, even just thinking about the venue, my venue was $7,000 total for 2 days. For you, 10 the first year. So you're definitely looking at much higher costs. But I think, like, they're different scales. Everyone knows Vegas. Not everyone knows Asheville, but a lot of people do want to go to Asheville. It's like, it is known for being a kind of place that people come to, from out of town to visit. So but the benefits in terms of like the economics around that can be really substantial. I think I ended up. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to add a quick side note that since we're talking financials, we had a 25,000 roughly food and beverage minimum.
Okay.
For Sin City Ruby.
Yeah.
Oh,
and so when the open bar came, I said over the mic to everybody, drink them dry.
Yeah.
We're really paying for this. So take advantage.
Oh my God. Send Jason some money. I'm going to send you some money.
I'm doing just fine.
I feel bad now. No, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so far I've heard more cons than pros for organizing the conference.
I would still do it again.
Yeah.
If I can break even, I still want to be able. Like I was actually thinking 2 days ago. I wonder if I could do this again next year. And I'm like Jason. Like I don't necessarily want to do this year after year. I want to do more events. That's the thing. I want to create more experiences for people. And maybe I'm ready.
Yeah. What do you think about, like, now I was thinking about Jason, right? About Sin City, because Jason quit podcasting at some point, if you remember.
Yeah.
And then picked it up again after a month or two or something. And like, if you were to do Sin City again, maybe not next year, maybe you take a year off or something. Would you consider that like a different series? Would it be like different? Do you think, people will think about it different? It's not the same Sin City. It's like, it's not the same series. Like, probably.
No, I think it'd be about the same. Something people have said to me about Sin City Ruby is there's kind of a common vibe. Like the one thing that everybody has in common who goes there is that they have some kind of connection with me, and so that's going to have some kind of effect. And I didn't really think about that until people told me, but that seems to make sense. So that effect will still be there. It'll still be, my stamp on it or whatever. I'll still probably do things about the same. We'll still have arm wrestling. So I think it would be about the same. Having said that, I really have no intention of bringing it back because I don't want to have a conference so far away. There's like a limited, not monetarily only, but there's like a limited budget of travel in a year, It's like, do I want to spend my travel budget going to Las Vegas? I don't even like Las Vegas. So like, I don't want to keep going there. Yeah, but like, there's a really nice town in Michigan called Traverse City. It's about 2.5 hours north of where I live. And like, we go to Traverse City almost every year anyway, so like to just take that little drive up there and like, maybe I'll see a bunch of my Ruby friends from around the world in my own backyard. That sounds really nice. I'd much rather spend my travel budget on that, which is a much smaller time expenditure and all that, than go all the way to Las Vegas. So, I'm not going to say never again, but I really have no intention of doing it.
That brings up another point, which is like flight availability, direct flight availability is a significant factor for many people. I hadn't really understood that, but like doing Asheville has a regional airport that almost no one has direct flights to, and so that was a significant factor for anyone that was coming. Like there's an extra hurdle there.
Part of me wonders if that's actually a positive in some way.
I mean, it could be. You could play it both ways. Like it makes it more exclusive. The people that go there really want to go there, in a sense. Yeah. Could be either way.
Yeah, because sometimes, okay, like when I visited the mountains in Romania, like it was kind of a weird trip. Like we hired a driver, and there's like one road that goes out there, and you could only drive slow, and there was like terrible traffic at times and stuff like that. But it's like, okay, I'm going on this like backdoor secret journey. Like I'm going to a place that like not a lot of people go to.
Yeah.
This is pretty cool.
Yeah. And you took your family, which is like very, like it doubled up on the like the purpose of the trip or the meaning behind it, like what you could do, what you could experience with your family.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Yeah, so I think there are some positives here, even if they're all kind of like, yeah, even if it was difficult, I would do it again because the smiles and everything. So yeah, if anybody wants to do something like that, definitely
don't do it.
Talk to past conference organizers, not Jason, because he's gonna say.
Actually, talk to Jason because he'll tell you a lot of things that like you need to know. Like just because someone might not want to do the same thing again doesn't mean that they don't know a bunch of stuff that you need to hear, so you don't lose your shirt.
He's gonna tell you how to create a conference that will change people's lives.
Ha! Yeah, no, that was smart on your part, Jeremy, to talk to other conference organizers. I did that a little, but you did it in a more thorough way. So yeah, that's good advice to other people. Talk to other conference organizers before you dive in.
It helped a ton. And it like all of them, like the people I reached out to, they were so willing to help. That was like unexpected how many people were just like, you want to do this hard thing? Yeah, I can share some wisdom about about that.
Yeah.
That was.
Didn't someone create a playbook or talk about creating a playbook?
I was hoping
never
to
read it.
afterward.
Okay, that was
I
you?
didn't. I was too exhausted. Like it was just done after. It just needed to be done.
And another advice that I would have, this is something that I did and really helped out, like go and tour other conferences, other different conferences, like big, small, regional, fancy, simple, whatever you want to call it, because it's going to calibrate you towards what you want to do.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I was taking so many mental notes, thinking like Jason's 30-minute talk, 30-minute break. Totally stole that from him. It was like, this is what I want.
From Jason Charnes.
Okay, yeah. I guess I didn't even remember that he did that at Southeast, but yeah, that was perfect. And experiencing that, and then being able to experience several, I would even say, try to experience several different kind of conferences back to back in the same year, like within enough time where you can kind of like compare. This one was like this one was like this, so you kind of have them in your mind, like, oh, I like this one, this part of this one, and I like this part of this one. It gives you like you can make your decisions like around that much easier when you can compare a bunch, and you're experiencing that.
Yeah. Jason, what's your advice about to people that are thinking about hosting a conference?
Good question. I don't know. I'm hesitant to give any advice.
Don't get a room block.
Don't get a room block. I'm very confident in saying that. Yeah, like doing it at not a hotel. Like I don't think I'll ever do it at a hotel again. Like for whatever that's worth. And selling tickets is like the name of the game pretty much. Like if you can sell enough tickets, you're good. If you can't, you're screwed. So like that's definitely I'd put that at the number one slot of things to think about.
Well, there's also sponsorship, which we hadn't really gone into.
Yeah.
For me, it was I would put even more effort into sponsorship.
Me too. But I think our maybe Blue Region friendly were a little bit different in this way versus Sin City. Because I think you, Jason, relied a lot on tickets. The tickets were maybe a little bit pricier, and we did it the other way around. And
cheaper tickets, more sponsors. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, maybe so.
And I would definitely put a lot of work into like reaching out to sponsors, figuring it out. Like when you talk to conference organizers, ask them about what sponsors need and want, because you're going to have different types of sponsors of sizes that have different needs. They sponsor conferences because of different reasons. Some want to hire, some want to be more prevalent in the community, some want to just be friendly and to do quirky stuff. So try to figure out their profile and then appeal to that. Right. So definitely put some work into that.
When you look at the revenues, ticket sales versus sponsorship, is it 50-50?
I was just looking at this yesterday, and ours was 1/3 sponsorship, 2/3 ticket sales.
We had in 23 we had 1/4 sponsorships, and then the rest were tickets, or maybe even less than 20, maybe 20%. But in 2024 we had almost half and half.
Yeah,
oh, nice.
So that was cool, and we didn't make any more money, that's for sure. But it allowed us to, put on like more experience, like put on like a better show for everyone. And things got a little bit expensive, like that's another thing. But yeah.
Oh, another thing that I did that I would recommend when you're thinking about the budget is I set a base sort of minimum viable conference budget and then extended budget. So I knew I had to have a venue, I had to have some kind of drinks and snacks. I needed a speaker honorarium and a speaker dinner, and I wanted to do video production, although that was even on the fence on that. And I knew, so my base budget was around 20 grand. And then the stretch goals ended up being another 10 grand. So as I saw tickets come in and sponsorships, I could say like, okay, if I get to this point, I can do t-shirts. I can do better drinks and snacks. I can do like other things. And so like splitting it out that way. So, like, okay, I can pull this off on a shoestring at this, and then I can make it better at this. And then just kind of keeping those numbers separate until you hit hit enough. You can project that you're going to hit the numbers for that.
Well, I would have been tempted to pocket the money.
I mean, maybe I should have, like, honestly, like,
we did it differently. We did it. So I wanted things, like I wanted a nice venue. And I think I took that off of you, Jeremy, when I saw your venue. Like, oh my God, that theater with the, the decor.
I
like,
love
and
that
everything.
freaking
Like,
theater. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted like the good venue, the good video. I wanted to do activity. And like I said, like, I don't care, like I'll pay from my pocket or whatever. We all said like, okay, we're gonna split whatever we have to go into our pockets for. But I did it like I want to have it like at this level, because I wanted to like for people to come and actually enjoy it at the level that I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a reflection on you at the end of the day.
Yeah.
A lot of it is.
Exactly, yeah.
Talking of video production, you just mentioned Jeremy. Like, how much does it cost to get a video crew, and do you actually need a video crew? Does it benefit? Like, I remember Yuruko a couple of years ago, they didn't hire, like, they didn't really produce the videos. They just had a live stream, and then they cut
Just
out the live
live stream
streams into like chunks and uploaded them. So they did not like, I know, spent months on editing videos. They just like had something straight away.
I think this is a strategy. It goes back to your strategy. Like, what is the purpose of your conference, and how are you trying to, like, what is the angle that you have? Because sometimes you might be a small regional conference, but you can play bigger by having high production value on video, and then getting them up on YouTube and Ruby video, Ruby events, and you kind of like end up with a larger audience than you might normally have. And so that can be one way to play it. The other way is don't do any video like Jason, make it exclusive. If you didn't come to this talk, you missed it. How many times have I heard people say like, oh, I've heard multiple times like, oh, you missed it. I did this talk one time at Sin City and you didn't, like you missed out. And that can be a nice thing too. I think it just depends on what your strategy is. What I probably would not recommend is going halfway on video. To me, like, it's probably not worth doing low production value. This is another thing, like with my doing Blue Ridge the first time, the venue required that I use their preferred vendors for certain things. If I wanted to do drinks, if I wanted to do video or AV, they had preferred vendors. And if I didn't use their preferred vendors, it was going to be another additional 15% or something financially, like take another, to be able to use my own. So I use their videographer. This venue is a theater, but they do a lot of weddings there because it's so pretty, this really interesting venue. And so there's a kind of mostly a wedding videographer. I guess he does some other things, but he'd not done a technical conference before. And so we had challenges around that where he wasn't set up to do HDMI capture properly. And that made the process of getting videos done on the back end really difficult. And their AV equipment for the space was not great for video. The mics and stuff just did not pick up well for video. And we had challenges even in the space for live, but particularly on the video. So I was not happy. I was just not happy with the production value on the video. And I think it was $4,000 for that, for using them. But you're looking at maybe double that or more if you go with a larger production crew that's used to doing conferences. That would be my expectation, at least in the US.
Yeah, and with a lot of the components that could possibly go into a conference, I kind of asked myself, do I absolutely have to do this? And if the answer was no, then I didn't.
Yeah.
Because with videos, for example, I'm not saying they're not worth doing, but like my feeling was that it was going to cost me, in the broadest sense of cost, it was going to cost me a lot more than anybody really cared about having the videos. And so it's like, all right, that's out of proportion. I'm not going to pay this price for something that people can live without, and it's not going to cost them much not to have it. So I just said no thanks. I said no thanks to that and almost everything else too.
I think it depends here, because for many speakers, having the video artifact, especially if it's a talk they've not given anywhere else where the video was recorded, it becomes like one of the big benefits to them. On top of a speaker honorarium, they have this piece to then put in their portfolio and to share with other people. And I think that is a significant benefit for speakers. Now,
it's a good point.
That doesn't mean everybody has to have that.
No, but I want to give you a counterpoint. So if you don't have your talk recorded at that conference, it's not out there. So if you go to a different conference and record it, that's basically a new talk.
That's
right?
True.
It's an original talk. So there's also that, because
Mhm.
I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen in some places. The videos didn't come out, so okay, nobody saw it, so I can give it again.
Yeah, and that may even select toward people who want the less pressure of being, like, for beginning speakers, the pressure of being on camera and as well as being in front of an audience is probably more, because this thing's going up on YouTube after it's done, and like however you came across is how it's going to be put out there. So you might end up being selecting toward people that either don't need video because they've already got a big name, or they've already got this video out, somebody else already recorded it, or the brand new speakers who want the less pressure. So I think that's why I say it goes back to strategy. I think it depends on like what's your angle, what are you trying for, and I think we need conferences that do all of that. We need conferences that are exclusive, that if you didn't see here, you might have missed it permanently. And then we need others where it's a small regional conference, but they have high production values, and then everyone gets to see it on YouTube and reference this great talk, like for the next several years or something.
Definitely.
Guys, I think this was a good episode. I really enjoyed talking to you guys and sharing about this. And I hope we kind of opened the appetite for some people to kind of like take over and like remix whatever they heard, whatever they saw at different conferences, whatever they heard here, and do their own things. We want to go there. We want to experience that. So we want to see that flavor of a conference, of an event. Go out there and do it. That's my message to you guys.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, you can pull it off. Like, it will take a lot of work. It will take a lot out of you, but you can make a special event for people. And I think there are significant rewards there. Maybe not monetarily, but
just remember not to do the arrangement with the hotel.
Yeah.
Not directly monetarily, but indirectly.
Yeah. It's going to be hard to attribute those things, and maybe they come much later because you made a bunch of wonderful connections. I had a client that probably I could at least partially attribute to the conference. So I think that can happen. But I think the other thing there is just trusting that it'll come back around to you. And maybe that's too much of a lift sometimes, where it's just like, man, the hits, it's too much. But if you can pull it off, trusting that like putting this gift out in the Ruby community will come back to you in some shape or form down the road.
That's awesome. Guys, thanks a lot for coming on the show and talking about this and opening up. And
that's great.
I'll see you around.
Yeah, thanks guys. Yeah.
Thank you guys.